Welcome everyone. It's great to see a bright and early crowd as we kick off a great show here in Denver. And I'm very pleased to introduce, first up, Gregory from Intermedia, whose presentation and address will be the changing nature of business communications and the roadmap for service providers. As background, Intermedia is a cloud communication company that works with over 140,000 businesses, helping them to connect better wherever they may be through an AI-powered platform. Intermedia works with over 7,500 channel partners to help them grow their revenue and maximize their success, providing their partners with attractive economic returns and maintaining ownership of their customer relationships as well as agent models. Please join me in welcoming Brian Gregory, Intermedia's Senior Director, Product Marketing, Intermedia Cloud Communications.
Thanks, Chip.
I like your work.
Oh, you like that? You know, it's very. I just want to point out that I got one of those headshot pictures, and I'm wearing the same shirt. I just want to say I own more than one shirt. Like, that is not the only shirt that I have, but it's a good-looking headshot. So, shall we dive in? Oh, I have a clicker. So let me just tell you a little bit about myself. I've been in the telecom space for 25 years. I started at Sprint, and I've been pretty much in product marketing and product management for that period. Started at Sprint on the local side of Sprint, which became Embark. I was product manager for DSL. I got into MPLS. Sprint bought Nextel. Moved around, moved from the service provider side to more of the equipment side. I worked at Metaswitch, worked with a lot of Metaswitch providers, helping them get their unified communications and hosted PBX solutions into market. Worked at Ribbon, worked at Edgewater Networks, and now I'm at Intermedia. So my responsibility at Intermedia is really our strategy around delivering solutions into the service provider space. And we've been doing this for a number of years, predominantly with our partnership with Metaswitch. We have 40 and that's really for our contact center solution. We have 40 or 50 providers that use our white label solution for contact center, and now we're moving more into the unified communication space and helping service providers deliver unified communication solutions. So, what are we going to talk about today? The changing nature of business communication. So, you know, I come from a very product management, product marketing background, so we're in a really, really interesting time in this market. And, well, first off, let me just go through, Chip already, I wanted to put my donut slides up there, good. So yeah, just a little bit about Intermedia. You know, we're kind of a mid-sized cloud UC and CC provider. I'm not going to spend a lot of time on feeds and speeds and product kind of things. I really want to get into sort of the market because it's really, really interesting right now. But Intermedia, if I leave you with something about Intermedia, we have a full stack, unified communications, contact center, platform. We predominantly sell through channel partners. That's probably why you don't really see our brand name out there that much, because we white label almost exclusively. So we've done a lot of work to sort of optimize that experience around bringing channel partners into the mix, helping them sell, putting their brand name out front, and not really selling with our brand name. So as you see, but we're in a very, very competitive market, and we do battle against all the names that in this space, right? And it's really, they've bubbled up into names like Teams and Zoom and RingCentral and, just some third-party data there. We have a very well-regarded product. I encourage you to come by our booth. You can see more about it at our booth later today. But we're not going to talk about that. We're going to talk about the market and sort of the options you have as you think about this. I've been in hosted PBX, hosted telephony, PBXs for a very long time, and we're really just in a very, very interesting space in the service provider realm. And if you think about it, I was thinking about this morning, and you think about the product categories that service providers have to sell. I mean, obviously, there's the data access and wireless and things like that that are the big hitters and the big part of their revenue stream. But you think about the next level down and the applications that you can layer on top of that. What are the things that what are the big things out there? And certainly, selling hosted telephony, unified communications. I mean, those are the big next tier products that you want to take to market as a service provider. So it's a hugely important product category. So the service providers are very smartly, very early to this market. I mean, when I was at Sprint, we sold, Nortel PBXs, and those things sold for $10,000, $20,000. That moved into hosted telephony, and BroadSoft was a very early pioneer of that, Metaswitch as well. And consequently, the service providers took probably 40, according to third-party research, 40% of the market for hosted telephony. So they have controlling a huge part of the market. But the market's really changing, and it's really changing radically over the last several years, particularly with COVID and work from home and the emergence of teams. What this information on the right is showing is kind of the growth rate of hosted telephony, unified communications over the last 12 months. And you can see Microsoft Teams has become a major competitive threat. And I'm going to talk a little bit more about Teams in a few slides and maybe how you might want to think about competing in that market. But if you look at the middle columns, the local providers, the tier 1 service providers, the growth rates are kind of slowed a little bit because it's become a more competitive market. It's become a more challenging space to compete. We would be considered the OTT provider. We're still growing at a very strong, 10 to 15%. So it's been a good market for us. But it's a market you have to continually innovate in because it's a challenging market. So service providers control a huge part of this market. It's a huge market. It's a $15 billion market in North America. So it's a gigantic market. This is some data from Frost & Sullivan. The interesting thing here, 2 data points I want to get across here. One, the big rise of hosted PBX, unified communications, has been this transition away from the prem to the cloud, right? You've had all these switches that are getting replaced with cloud-based solutions, and that's been really the low-hanging fruit for this market. Again, $15 billion market transitioning to the cloud. Most analysts think that transition is only like 30 to 50, 60% done. So there's still a lot of transition left to take place. A lot of old PBXs, key systems that are out there that haven't moved to a cloud-based solution. And it's just going to happen, right? It's just, the products don't really exist on the premise much anymore, so you just have less options. And the cloud just, I think, has shown itself to be a more superior solution. The other interesting point here is buyer preference. And there's a lot of data around buyer preference that service providers are really the place that most of these business customers want to buy from. You are the trusted advisor. You are the place they want to go to buy solutions from. So you're in a great spot, right? You are the person that they trust the most, they want to buy from. There's a lot of market still out there to take place. Now, here's the curveball. The underlying technology that that you all have used, and predominantly it's been from BroadSoft, who was acquired by Cisco, Metaswitch acquired by Microsoft. Well, they're pretty much leaving this market, right? They are abandoning, certainly Metaswitch has, if you're a Metaswitch customer, you know that they've let go most of their products, they're end-of-lifing, they're pushing their customers to Teams. Same with Cisco and BroadSoft, they want you to sell WebEx. And it's not a private label solution. It is a solution that now you are kind of undifferentiated in the market. So the interesting thing here is large component of the service providers control a big part of the market. The underlying technology providers that have historically provided that solution are leaving the market. They're leaving you guys in a bit of a lurch. So what are you going to do? What are your options out there? So I'm going to run through 3 options, and I'm going to kind of put on the product manager hat and think about a few options that the service providers have as you start to navigate moving away from that traditional feature server in the cloud. Again, historically deploying a feature server in the network, delivering services off of that capability. I see 3 big options here, right? One is kind of continue with the status quo, more of a Band-Aid approach. The next, there are people out there selling other feature servers. And then, spoiler alert, move to the cloud. And that's kind of my leaning, so I may prioritize that one a little bit. But all these things, all these choices here are rational choices. So let's start with the first one, which is status quo. And this in a serious fashion. And what am I talking about? Keep your underlying feature server infrastructure, keep your BroadSoft, your Metaswitch, whatever, but then put a new face on it, put a new product skin on it, put a new soft client out there, make it, polish it up a little bit, but kind of continue with the status quo for the large part. The problem is the pace of innovation, and you can see this, some information from Cavell Group on the right here. The biggest thing, this is from service provider survey data. 53% of service providers say one of their biggest product priorities is getting AI into their portfolio. Well, just putting a new client out there is really not going to get you that kind of product, right? So now you're slowly, becoming less and less competitive. I think there's certainly some underlying vendor risk, and if if you're a customer of Metaswitch and you're trying to get support, now there are good third-party companies out there that provide support, but there's some risk there. You don't want to have outages that cause customer dissatisfaction. And then what I really want to talk about is churn, because in my spare time, I'm a bit of a spreadsheet engineer, and I want to share a little bit about churn and how this churn question it really impacts your bottom line over time. So if you think about a status quo condition, I took two scenarios, right? If you look at, I'm looking at a 5-year time horizon. On the left-hand side, 5% slow growth, churn moderately high, 1.5% per month. That's a big number if you start looking at it annually. Churn's going to slowly get bigger and bigger. So churn rate at the end of 5 years is almost 2.5%. Intermedia, our partners, typically see new gross adds in the 25% rate is not uncommon. Our calculated churn rate across all of our products is 0.7%. And we can tend to stay competitive, so we're going to continue to innovate and take our slice of the market. So let me just compare those two scenarios and how those play out over time. And it's kind of striking when you start looking at overall seat growth. I started with 10,000 seats, and I modeled this forward. 10,000 seats turns to 20,000 in this model in kind of a more cloud-based, Intermedia-based offer. 10,000 turns to less than 4,000 here in this kind of status quo model. So it's really incumbent upon you to think through the product elements of your portfolio and whether or not you're truly competitive as you think about maybe polishing up what you have. And I took this one step further. I just did some simple math, like, all right, what's a sell price for a UCC? 30, you sell it for 30, you buy it, say, from Intermedia for 10, you're making $20 a margin, you got 20,000 seats, that's $40,000. So that's the same math that I just kind of showed. Yeah, so that translates into a 15% annual growth rate. If I take that, and I call this a soft phone trap, so it's really this idea of like, all right, well, maybe I can buy a cheap soft phone. Say that soft phone costs me $1 a month, so now I'm making $29, but I only have 4,000 seats, so my margin's 25% of that. And that's what that churn rate is it's going down and down, and your CAGR, your annual growth rate is just lower and lower. So it's that trap of like maybe polishing up your product and not being competitive. And I just took this one step further and said, okay, well, what would you need to make? So if I'm making now $29 a margin, how many seats do I need to have on that platform to break even with the more of a traditional UC solution? Almost 14,000. So now you need to make the calculation that I can moderately grow my product with just putting a new skin on it, we call it lipstick on the pig a little bit. But now you better be growing your portfolio, you better be growing that product at 6% per year after churn. So it's a challenging calculation, and I have a lot more behind this if you want to geek out on it. Okay, next scenario is adding a new feature server. I mean, this is very attractive because it's a similar model, similar operational model, same people, same training, you can plug it into the network, you kind of understand how that goes. So I get the benefits of doing that. A couple of things that concern me with the feature server, going down the path of a new feature server. One is speed of deployment, and I saw this a lot with a lot of our Metaswitch customers, we would release features, but they wouldn't bring them into their feature server. So now you have all these features that kind of accumulate but don't get installed. And anytime you don't have technology getting installed and features and bug and patches, you have less and less of a competitive solution. I also think economies, the cloud just is, we've already seen this across so many different product categories. The cloud just bears out. It's a much more efficient way to buy solutions. We've seen it in, across, the rise of AWS and all these different places where the cloud just is better. See licensing costs and holding costs. I'm going to kind of talk a little bit about this. So I've done a bit of an economic analysis here as a product manager that I am. When you start doing the math, when I start comparing, say, the feature server model where you're kind of DIYing it and doing it yourself versus a cloud-based solution, I get a lot of pushback from customers and prospects saying, well, I'm spending $60, $70 one time for a feature server license and you're charging me $10 a month or whatever. Well, how does that even compare? Well, there's a lot that goes into that, and there's a lot of inefficiencies around with feature servers. You just think about just the time value of money and buying all these licenses up front and having to deplete them before you buy money. Well, that's money that's on the shelf that's not getting used more efficiently. Running a data center is not cheap. We've seen things like hypervisor licenses start to go through the roof in terms of pricing, power, co-location, all is expense. Customer care is expensive as well. And so when you start adding it up, it's really pretty equivalent. So you think about the DIY approach versus more of a cloud approach. I think the cloud approach becomes a lot more equal just in terms of its pricing model. And then lastly, moving to the cloud. So certainly we are a cloud provider. We feel very strongly this is an attractive model, and we do a lot of things in our product to make sure it's incredibly flexible for buyers of our services that then resell them to be, we create this very win-win, very low barrier to entry kind of solution set. Again, you're getting that innovation, cost. I really feel like there's a cost savings or at least a cost equivalence here that needs to be considered. Branding flexibility is huge. If you look at resale pricing, if you're going to resell something like WebEx or Ring or whoever, you look at the margins on that versus a white label solutions, well, you're going to make 2 to 3 times the margin on a white label solution versus a resale model. So I think the branding and the white label components are super, super valuable. And I think, the other thing is the perfect cost alignment to revenue. So you think about, okay, I sold something, now when do I need to pay for it? And, in a cloud-based model, in our model, you don't pay for that underlying capability until you actually sell something and install it. So you're not paying for something until you actually have a customer on the hook. And so there's perfect alignment there. This is a slide that we like to use, and it kind of talks about how we think about outsourcing a cloud-based solution. And service providers what they do very, very well is manage their customer relationships. They have great sales teams, they have great support teams. Keep doing what they're doing now and let all that underlying capability of managing the platform, developing new features, back office integration, billing, all that kind of stuff can be provided from a provider like Intermedia. We feel very strongly this is an optimized model for a product that you don't need to necessarily invest in technical resources that may only touch this product every so often. We have great expertise, and we have a JD Power certified support team that supports this product and is extremely, extremely well. So those are the 3 scenarios that I would paint for you as options that you might have go forward, because you're going to have to, if you're in hosted telephony, unified communications today, you're going to have to make a decision here before too long, particularly if you're focused on that business customer. Because if you're not innovating, if you're not looking for the next thing, you're really going to find yourself behind the 8 ball pretty quickly. So I want to talk next about a little bit about differentiation. And I'm just going to talk about, this is, like I said, very highly competitive market. Just a couple of things, how we are trying to differentiate our portfolio. And I feel like this is kind of across the board. I think anytime this has become, like I said, a very, almost like a table stakes sort of product where everybody has the features like, video meetings and chat and and collaboration tools. Like that's kind of table stakes. Just here's some areas that we Intermedia are innovating with that I think are kind of interesting. The first is AI. Certainly, like I shared with some data earlier, AI is a major thrust of investment, across many places. But service providers like yourselves are looking for solutions that you can push out to your customer base to make them more productive. And we have a huge team of people that are out developing solutions. So I want to share just 2 solutions that we've launched in the last within the last several months. The first thing on our UC solution is meeting transcription. So you're on a conference call with 5 people, you go through a meeting for an hour, what happened in that meeting? Well, did somebody take notes? I don't know, maybe they did, maybe they didn't. Well, now with AI, you could have meeting transcription. And this is an out-of-the-box solution, no additional cost, where you have the ability to summarize that meeting, provide some action items, and that's the meeting. So it's really a great productivity tool. And these are the kind of things, the kind of products that, features I should say, that need to be rolling into your portfolio. The next on the contact center side is there's so much interesting things going on in the contact center space around AI, and just the ability, having a 20-minute, 30-minute phone call with a customer and just being able to summarize that and get to things like sentiment, where you're looking at, well, how did the call go and how did that agent respond to that person, and what actually transpired. AI is an amazing tool for taking large blocks of information and just condensing it down to a very simple paragraph that summarizes what's going on. So it's a very valuable component. And this is, again, a kind of an out-of-the-box solution that comes into our contact center space. Very valuable solution, and I think customers immediately grasp the benefit of that. The next thing is archiving, and archiving is just think about call recording times 5, right? We've all kind of had call recording solutions, particularly for regulated industries like finance and healthcare and whatever, and HIPAA sort of requirements. Our archiving solution is expanding out beyond that to basically all forms of communication. So, calls, meetings, SMS, IMs, all that can be tracked and monitored both in the unified communications and on the contact center. We're expanding that to email, we're expanding that to Microsoft Teams, so basically anything that's transpiring in that industry can be recorded, easily searched and retrieved. And that kind of the interesting thing is we thought we would see a lot of business in those sort of regulated industries, law firms and healthcare, but we've seen a lot in sort of non-regulated industries, retail or whatever, because they want to track communications. They want to have they want to have some record of all the things that are going on in their business. So it's been a really valuable tool, and it's a great, however much a month it is, it's a great way to add on and build your ARPU for your core solution. SMS is another product that when I found out we had this, we just kind of give this as part of our UC solution. I was like, that's pretty amazing. You basically have the ability, if you've made a dentist appointment or you've done any kind of transaction. Customers want to do that in an SMS or MMS environment. And we, as part of our UC solution and of our contact center solution, enable all those SMS capabilities. That's a great differentiator for you. So lastly, I want to talk about Teams, because, like we talked earlier, Teams is such a huge component of this market. 300 plus million active daily users. Only 20 million, though, are using Teams for telephony. So now I'm talking about an integrated telephony, and some are using kind of like a phone system here, Teams here. But as an integrated solution, only less than 10% are using Teams for telephony. So there's an opportunity here, and a big potential market. So how as a service provider might you want to attack that? Well, the big components for voice service for Teams kind of fall in 2 categories. One, direct routing. So you can go in, you can get an SBC from the likes of Ribbon or Audio Codes. You can deploy that on a customer side. It's a nice enterprise-grade solution. You can do analog lines. You can do all the kind of fun stuff that you might need to do to support a Teams customer. It's probably only economical. It's not terribly scalable, but for enterprise or bigger accounts, it certainly makes sense. Microsoft over the last several years has launched what they call Operator Connect, and they've invited a lot of carriers to become Operator Connect partners. And that enables business customers that are using Teams to go into the Teams portal and actually buy telephony solutions, not just the PBX, which Microsoft sells, but Access, SIP, basically SIP trunking solution as part of that, as part of their solution set. I think the downside of either of these two solutions is that they're just voice access solutions at the end of the day. I mean, if you look at your revenue per customer per month, $3, $4, $5 per month is probably what you would expect in a SIP trunking environment. It's also become really competitive, right? If you go out on Microsoft's website, you look at how many service providers are out there selling Operator Connect. Right now, there's 48 of them out there selling this solution. So you have a lot of competition. Now, the good news is it's a big market, but there are a lot of people out there selling it. Our strategy, we took a slightly different strategy around Teams, and we obviously compete against Teams. We also feel like it's the category is so big that we need to have a solution that's embedded. So what we did, and we just launched this in the end of July of this year, is our Ascend for Teams Advanced solution. And so what is that? It is our integrated. We took our PBX. And we fully integrated into the Teams environment, and we made it as a sellable product for service providers to sell into that Teams marketplace. So it's fully embedded. There's no middleware. There's no additional Microsoft SKU you need to buy. So you as a service provider can go into a customer, sell them a hosted PBX solution that integrates fully into Teams, telephony and voice minutes behind the scenes. And instead of that $3 to $4 per user per month, now you're talking more like $20 to $22 per user per month because you're selling a higher value solution. It kind of looks like this. So here's a bit of an eye chart, but you think about Teams is going to do all the collaboration that you would kind of historically associate with Teams, right? The chat, the message, the video, all that is Teams, and that's a sidebar there. You can kind of see what that looks like. But the second you want to use telephony or SMS or have all the any kind of phone features, all that is a integrated PBX solution that is an Intermedia white label solution that service providers can offer to their customers. So it's a really nice combined solution where you can sell a much more higher value product to an incredibly growing, expanding market. So with that, I'll just kind of wind up, why Intermedia? We have really good products. And that's really just born out of the competitive nature of this marketplace. We have to compete against all of those big names that are many, many times bigger than us. So we work really, really hard, and we put a lot of our money back into R&D to make sure we have that product set that we need. We're the one provider that's very, very channel first. We want to get your logo, your brand out front, so you can sell and you can have your name as the linchpin for your product. We got great performance, and then the world-class support. We spend a lot of money. If you look at if you go out on the web and look at NPS scores, Net Promoter scores, we're traditionally like a 70. You look at other providers, I've seen it as low as like -30, which is like promoters minus distractors. So anyway, that is my pitch. I'm happy to take any questions if anybody would like to ask anything. Oh, thank you. Thank you. Thank you, Alistair. Any additional thoughts, questions? And it's okay if it's no, it's fine. But thank you for getting up this morning. Thanks for coming to breakfast. We have a booth. We have some of my sales team over there. If you like to, or just come talk to me about product stuff, I'd love to talk to you. So it was really nice spending time with you this morning. I really enjoyed it. Thank you.